For now, we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. Finally, be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand, stand firm. Then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace, in addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions, with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep praying for all the saints.
Now, my grandmother was a wonderful person. She taught me how to play the game Monopoly. She understood that the name of the game is to acquire. She would accumulate everything she could, and eventually she became the master of the board. And eventually, every time, she would take my last dollar, and I would quit in utter defeat. And then she would always say the same thing to me. She'd look at me and she'd say, "One day, you'll learn to play the game." One summer, I played Monopoly with a neighbor almost every day, all day long. We'd play Monopoly for hours. And that summer, I learned to play the game. I came to understand the only way to win is to make a total commitment to acquisition. I came to understand that money and possessions, that's the way that you keep score. And by the end of that summer, I was more ruthless than my grandmother. I was ready to bend the rules if I had to win that game. And I sat down with her to play that fall. I took everything she had. I destroyed her financially and psychologically. I watched her give her last dollar and quit in utter defeat. And then she had one more thing to teach me. Then she said, "Now it all goes back in the box." All those houses and hotels, all the railroads and utility companies, all that property and all that wonderful money. Now it all goes back in the box. I didn't want it to go back in the box. "No," she said. "None of it was really yours. You got all heated up about it for a while. But it was around a long time before you sat down at the board. And it will be here after you're gone. Players come and players go. But it all goes back in the box. Houses and cars, titles and clothes, filled barns, bulging portfolios, even your body. Because the fact is that everything I clutch and consume and hoard is going to go back in the box, and I'm going to lose it all. That's not much of an ROI on that. You have to ask yourself, when you finally get the ultimate promotion, when you've made the ultimate purchase, when you buy the ultimate home, when you have stored up financial security and climbed the ladder of success to the highest rung you can possibly climb it, and the thrill wears off, and it will wear off, then what? How far do you have to walk down that road before you see where it leads? Surely you understand, it'll never be enough. So you have to ask yourself the question, what matters?
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening?
Yes, everything's going to be declassified, and more, much more than what you just mentioned. It'll all be declassified, and I'm glad I waited, because I thought that maybe they would obstruct if I did it early, and I think I was right. So I'm glad I waited, and now the Attorney General can take a very strong look at whatever it is, but it will be...
Washington, D.C. is now best seen as two opposing and warring camps. On the one side, the president and his allies are waking up to the fact that the coup conducted for the past 3 years against the Trump presidency was undertaken on behalf of a very powerful group of people who were brazen and very incompetent in their effort to reverse the result of the 2016 election. They have exposed themselves. This powerful apparatus, misnamed the Deep State by those who don't know their history, runs the other camp, inhabited by stay-behind Republicans who are overtly or covertly never Trumpers, or Democrats who now bear no resemblance to the party of Franklin Roosevelt or John F. Kennedy, but instead represent something akin to a sexual and racial identity-obsessed SDS collective from 1968 who have suddenly found themselves deeply in love with both the FBI and the CIA. Many people in both camps have no real idea why this war has taken place or what is actually at stake. Now the issue is, will the population outside of Washington, D.C. and our failing coasts catch up to who the people were who led this coup and why they ingested it, so they can bring the other 40% of the population who still believes that President Trump was elected as a result of the Russians stealing the 2016 election, back from what might appear to be hopeless insanity, a fairy tale, a made-up witch hunt. No more listening to the people that are ignorant to all the facts involved. We're going to cover some of those. Use your discernment. Make up your own mind. Use the facts and come to a good conclusion based off that. With Democrats now launching an all-out and desperate attack against President Trump's Attorney General William Barr, with signs emerging over the past few weeks that the deep state traitors may indeed finally face justice for their attempted coup against President Trump. And we'll take a look at some new evidence that all coup roads, lead back to Barack Obama, and that it is time for the coup plotters to be held accountable. As the Gateway Pundit reports in this news story that Steve Quayle had linked on his website Monday morning, the latest former Obama official to launch failing attacks upon Barr is former Obama AG Eric Holder, who called Barr not fit to lead the DOJ. That despite the fact that Barr led the DOJ for George H.W. Bush from 91 to 93, how did he suddenly become unfit to lead the DOJ, after also being confirmed by the Senate just months ago? Now, Eric Holder has previously described himself as Obama's wingman. Holder accused Barr of protecting President Trump and asserted that the Attorney General started his probe of Intel/FBI for political reasons. AG Barr has deliberately misrepresented the Mueller report. He has started examinations of the conduct of the Intel and FBI personnel without a predicate for political reasons. He is protecting the president. He does not stand up for the good of the people he leads. He is not fit to lead the DOJ. Actually, it sounds like Barr may be the perfect person to lead the DOJ, which long ago sold out the American people to protect the Clinton crime family. According to this news story from DC Whispers, newly discovered evidence suggests that none other than Barack Obama had conspired with foreign powers to overthrow President Trump. As PJ Media has reported, in what must have been a very surprise move to Obama's deep state, Giuseppe Conte, the Prime Minister of Italy, recently fired top management of 3 Italian intelligence agencies, reporting that the moves were being looked at as the Conte government's response to previous government's coordinated surveillance activity with the U.S. intelligence officials during the 2016 election. They went on to report that all of this points directly at no other than, you guessed it, former CIA head John Brennan. And all the infighting between the former U.S. intelligence heads lately, that all hints that this is all very true, and the walls are closing in as the tables have turned. So just this past week, Comey attacked Brennan, and then Brennan attacked back. Now Italy appears to be disclosing Brennan as a primary player in the failed coup attempt against President Trump. Does anyone believe such a thing could have taken place without Barack Obama's knowledge and approval? No way. With a very real coup attempt by Obama's deep state on President Trump, thankfully exposed and hopefully soon prosecuted, President Trump may have a potent new tool in his hands to do just that. As we read in this news story from the Daily Caller, multiple senior officials have stated that President Trump plans on invoking the Insurrection Act, last invoked by George H.W. Bush in 1992 to quell the Los Angeles riots. Could the 1807 Act also be used by President Trump to round up enemies of America within? We're doing the Insurrection Act, one official said in the story. Under the Insurrection Act of 1807, the president has the authority to use a National Guard and military in order to combat unlawful obstruction or rebellion within U.S. borders. The act was last invoked in 1992 by George H.W. Bush to quell the Los Angeles riots, and was also used by Eisenhower in '57 to enforce school desegregation in the South. An official expressed concerns that Trump's use of the Act's powers would face legal challenges, pointing to its lawsuits against the presidential's travel ban from the majority Muslim countries. However, as we must note, that travel ban ultimately prevailed in the Supreme Courts. Should President Trump use the Insurrection Act to round up all of the enemies of America within? Now, some people have reported it should be very clear to President Trump by now that there is an open rebellion against his presidency. So it must be clear that President Trump now recognizes that the open rebellion against America being committed by the governor of California, mayors of all these sanctuary cities, and the fake news journo terrorists who are brainwashing Americans to hate their own country. The ongoing land invasion of the United States of America is an act of war being openly supported by Democrats and leftists who are using illegal immigration to nullify U.S. voters and overrun the United States with anti-American militants, criminals, and terrorists. It has also become obvious over the past few months that tech giants are waging a coordinated conspiracy to nullify U.S. elections and crush democracy by selectively silencing all conservative voices on the dominant online platforms. This is a legal conspiracy pursued by Facebook, Twitter, Google, Apple, and other tech giants. It represents an online insurrection against the United States of America, which is why I have repeatedly called for the deployment of military police to arrest the CEOs of all of these tech companies and force the platforms to respect the First Amendment liberties of the American people. It is time for President Trump to deploy the military police to arrest Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey. And that's just the start of what needs to happen to restore our democracy and to keep our republic and the freedom to speak. All of the traitors within must be identified, detained, and removed from power by authorized force before they succeed in destroying this nation. Corrupt liberal judges who defy the president's efforts to secure the U.S. border, it is time to arrest corrupt anti-American judges and remove them from power. Journo terrorists who pretend to be journalists but are actually anti-American traitors spreading lies, hatred, and insanity to indoctrinate liberals and leftists, whipping them up into an attempted cultural revolution that has literally driven millions of leftists to the point of mass mental illness. CEOs and top managers, the ones that haven't stepped down and resigned yet, of all the tech giants, which have now sold out to the communist China and are using their power to selectively silence pro-American voices across all search engines, social media, and online platforms. These tech giants must be occupied and either shut down or forced to respect a level playing field of online speech. Antifa terrorists and other radical left-wing groups that promise an armed insurrection to attempt to overthrow the United States of America. We cannot allow this. Deep state operatives who conspired to carry out a political coup against President Trump, to name a few, James Comey, Robert Mueller, John Brennan, etc., so on, so forth. Liberal university professors who use their positions of influence to actively recruit students into domestic terrorism organizations such as Antifa. It has long been warned that any arrest of these deep state treasonists might be the final straw that pushed the rapidly maddening left over the edge, And as we see within the conclusion to our story, that immediately there's going to be more leftist violence immediately upon us. People, getting arrested and going down. We've been seeing that. And there's going to be violence propagated up by the left when these arrests go down against law-abiding conservatives, Christians, and President Trump supporters in general. Once Trump initiates the Insurrection Act, the lawless, deranged left will immediately declare Trump to be a military dictator, while calling for leftists to take to the streets in armed rebellion against the rule of law. Leftists will open fire on Trump supporters, bomb government buildings, and attempt to execute police officers and National Guard troops, which are deployed to defend America. Pro-Trump Americans need to be prepared to defend themselves against the violence of the lawless left. The radical left is an authoritarian, anti-American cult that also has demonstrated its dangerous lawlessness by censoring all online speech that opposes the deranged delusions of the progressive left. This is an indicator of their true intent: total authoritarian rule, complete with speech police and the elimination of those opposing views. The left has zero intention of respecting the rule of law, the Bill of Rights, or any election laws whatsoever. Every election from this day forward with them will be stolen or fraudulently altered by the leftists who truly hate America and despise all pro-American patriots. It is time for President Trump to deploy the military police to arrest and remove from power all of these people in government who are actively engaged in acts of treason, sedition, voter fraud. The California political leaders must be arrested and prosecuted for running a massive voter fraud conspiracy that attempts to steal elections from real American citizens. We're near the end of May of 2019, and June should bring the expected release of the IG's report on the FISA abuse investigation. We pray that everybody is ready for whatever may come, as mainstream media induced madness swept over the land as Americans finally got a real taste of reality TV. This will be the real thing. No scripts, no rehearsals, just a gang of criminals pointing their fingers at each other. It is important that President Trump knows that American people have his back as we plow through this absolutely crucial moment in American history. It is crucial that President Trump knows he has widespread support from the American people. All of this is about to go down. It is crucial that President Trump knows he has widespread support from all the American people to take the actions necessary to defend this nation from its domestic enemies. I took the oath, foreign or domestic. We the people will be tasked with supporting these efforts as Trump works to clean house and root out the treasonous traitors who are conspiring to destroy our great nation. It is ultimately on our shoulders. It is our responsibility. But if we all succeed, we may once again restore democracy and save the republic and the rule of law to America. If we fail, America fails to the authoritarian tyrants, and the nation will be deliberately dismantled and fed to the globalists. We are now fighting for our lives. We are blessed to have Donald J. Trump as our president, as America faces off against treasonous actors, deep state traitors, and authoritarian globalists who despise this nation and what it stands for. Be ready to literally fight for our survival and the defense of our great nation. The end game has arrived, and California will be the front lines in the coming war. This is Michael from the Patriot Hour. God bless each and every one of you worldwide. Where we go one, we go all. Dark to light, does not come without a fight. And remember, no deals, only pain. The end of central banking. The economy is imploding. Expect all fingers pointing at the Fed. Central banking is the single biggest threat for humanity. The promise of socialism is the justification to plunder. The economy is in a meltdown. The world's monetary system is being deliberately destroyed. Consequently, the economic signals that guide the markets, which in a free market are supposed to represent the supply and demand decisions of billions of people, have up to now all been totally false, despite frequent denials by the central banks and most mainstream economists. These distortions in the market are a result of intentional manipulations of currency and precious metal values around the world by these central bankers, crafted in response to demand for competing export opportunities, easy money, and cheaper credit by governments. The world is indoctrinated to believe that paper money, the symbol of wealth, is that can deliver all the benefits of the free market, while gold is a barbarous, useless metal. This, of course, isn't true. All central banks are owned by Rothschild. All these banks are responsible for the economic problems. Therefore, all these banks must be brought down together. In other words, we must bring down the entire Rothschild banking system. We must break away from the central banking system and return to a people's currency system by implementing a people's economy. It should be an economy in which we, the people, are in charge and in full control of the money supply. You know, like our Constitution says. Most people overlook this aspect of the economy, but this monetary system is a great part of the deep state's power. By controlling the currency system of every country, the people of the world are easily controlled, with economic growth instituted on the base of fraud and corruption. That's the reason why these central banks don't want to be audited. The banking system is riddled with waste, fraud, abuse, crime, corruption, blackmail, deception. And when one takes a deeper look into the governments that are factually based on this Rothschild system, it's all about crime and corruption. It is the exact same thing that takes place in the financial sector. What needs to be done is the entire economic system needs to be brought to its knees, like they've brought countries. While all the crimes of the complicit banksters needs to be exposed. But before they are brought down, Trump is continually blaming the central bank for the bad economy, over and over again. Why? In order to waken people up. so they are awake to these truths and eventually better understand and see this gigantic crime network for what it is, working against humanity. Meanwhile, Trump has tricked the MSN, mainstream media, to go along with him, where they are too now blaming the Fed bank system for deteriorating the economy. It is impossible to improve the current economy with a financial system that is based on this debt. The whole system has to be destroyed. The power must be given back to the people, since all financial schemes are malicious, Rothschild inventions, including institutions like the BIS, the IMF, the ECB, the WB, the BOJ, so on, so forth. By raising the interest rates, the system will break down, at which time the focus can be shifted to the Fed, the ECB, the BOJ, etc. Central banking is the single biggest threat for humanity. The central bank is the biggest threat to the world. The amount of control and power that a central bank has in each country is simply off the charts. No one else has so much power, enabling them to make or break countries by putting countries into debt. Matter of fact, the only thing that gives our money value is how much of it is in circulation. Therefore, the power to regulate the money supply is also the power to regulate its value, which is also the power to bring entire economies and societies to its knees. Look no further than in the 1930s here in America. Now, the central banks consequently do exactly what they want. Once a country is put into debt, for then they have the leverage to control them. They know this very well. They've studied it, they've practiced it, and they've done it in real time for centuries. This truly is the single biggest threat to the world. That is the reason this financial system has got to be destroyed, while at the same time making sure that never again does a central bank wiggle its way into existence anywhere. The people have a right to coin their own currency. Nowadays, governments are devaluing the money constantly, causing everything that people have worked for to disappear right before their very eyes. We simply need to return to a real asset-backed monetary system without a private central bank, and let the people take control. Now keep in mind, the Federal Reserve Central Bank is the last remaining game of the deep state. The Federal Reserve is its backbone. Reports suggest that the alliance is preparing for one last push on the deep state by proposing to end the Fed. Now, this termination will be the final blow that will render the deep state powerless, ensuring their complete demise. There's no turning back for them this time. The course of humanity will be changed in the blink of an eye. It will be shocking, and many who are oblivious to the truth will be overwhelmed and most likely in disbelief. The beginning of a very painful process of awakening for those who are not yet awake. I'm Michael. This is a Patriot Hour. God bless, Godspeed to each and every one of you worldwide. Where we go one, we go all. And remember, this is not about religions or party affiliation. Evil is everywhere. There are no drawn lines, no boundaries. Good versus evil. There is nothing more precious than our children. The choice to know will be ultimately yours. These people are sick, and good will always defeat evil. And we understand that there is extreme fatigue and frustration regarding the wheels of justice and how they move slow, but exclude your emotion and your personal desire. Instead, use logic and critical thinking based on situational awareness. What does it take to undo a lifetime of evil and corruption and infestation to the highest levels in the span of less than 2 years, with a corrupt DOJ and FBI and etc. and so on? This is process and planning of law and order, a military operation at its finest. God bless. We're witnessing the highest level treason event unfold in U.S. and worldwide history. Treason is the crime of betraying one's country, especially by attempting to kill the sovereign or overthrow the government. A military tribunal is an inquisitorial system based on charges brought by military authorities, prosecuted by military authority, judged by military officers, and sentenced by military officers against a member of an enemy army. Q has hinted to us that civilians can serve on military tribunals. Q has also hinted that U.S. citizens can be legally tried as enemy combatants in certain scenarios. The Cabal is a global criminal operation composed of private parties that has controlled the global monetary system since its inception in the 1600s. Now, it's been rumored that because of the Cabal's unaccounted for, fruitless spending, that by October 1st of 2018, the US dollar had been suspended of new asset funding, and as of January 2019, the US was completely out of money. The plan involved revaluing the fiat US dollar into a gold asset-backed note, plus restore the original US Constitution through a takedown of this criminal cabal. Since around the 1600s, Satan worshippers have been illegally funneling U.S. taxpayer monies for their own benefit. By the 1800s, they were using privately owned Federal Reserve, IRS, Bank of London, the Vatican, and these central banks to control the global monetary system, while filling their pockets for themselves and the politicians they wish to influence along the way. Organized by the Vatican and enforced by the various mafias under the direction of the Vatican Satanic Ninth Circle Child Sacrifice Cult. The Vatican, Federal Reserve, Queen Elizabeth, and the central bankers also obtained funds by running international child exploitation rings, drug and gun running rings, using payoffs, blackmail, and voter fraud to secure control over the geopolitical world. The Federal Reserve was secretive, run by unelected and unaccountable bureaucrats, bailed out by big banks, encouraged deficit spending, had too much power, had significantly devalued our currency, hurt the poor, and ruined the middle class. By October 1st of 2018, the fiat US dollar had no more liquidity in a bankrupt US Inc., which was said to be the real cause for the government shutdown on December 21st, and provided the perfect conditions for the alliance to prep the nation, the world, for a financial transition. In the next few weeks, the final revaluing of monies around the world, the preparations were finished. with the expected upcoming economic and security crisis of a stock market crash, multi-terrorist, gun, drug running, and the human trafficking crisis coming over the U.S. border, the serving of 71,000 plus indictments on mostly political elites, plus the Democrats refusing to address security issues, President Trump was mulling the possibility of declaring what is rumored to be martial law or some kind of national emergency. Now, it has been rumored that terrorist Alfonso Uela was organizing the 15,000 plus Hondurans and thousands of Mexicans who planned to force their way into the U.S. illegally around January 16th. Another reason for Trump to immediately declare a national emergency, the martial law that was being rumored. This was planned by the highest elites, and then they reached out to their arm of the media to declare it a caravan and start pumping it into our heads so we'd start arguing with fellow Americans whether it was an invasion or a caravan of peace. But what it really is treason and sedition to the highest levels of this country. Now, Operation Gladio was a nationwide secret army of foreign mercenaries, criminals, terrorists, and other soldier of fortune wannabes who used the open borders to sneak across terrorist cells, who would then carry out false flag terrorist attacks for the cabal. Another reason for Trump to immediately declare a national emergency, or as some are claiming, martial law. If you are not fully disturbed by the picture that's being painted here, I would suggest restarting this video over and watching it again. Now, the new gold asset-backed global currency reset was expected to be announced along with the quantum financial system at the World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland. This would require permanent shutdown of the Federal Reserve, the IRS, and central banks across the globe. Through a Tier 5 Joe Public could begin their exchanges. Moving forward to April and May of 2019, the 2016 and 2018 U.S. elections would be considered invalid, with the announcement of the GIRSA law, exposure of voter fraud, and the fact that George Soros not only owned most mass media outlets, but controlled the programming to most state voting machines. GIRSA required the new elections to be held within 90 days of announcement, meaning new elections would likely be held sometime in April or May of 2019. So to go back over this, we Americans are dealing with two foreign governments on our shores. One, a territorial United States government presided over by the British hegemony, and one municipal United States government presided over by the bunco artist of the Republican and Democratic political lobbies in what pretends to be a United States Congress. These two entities were built into our government from the very beginning, but never intended to play anything like the roles that they are currently playing, and since they have usurped. The territorial United States government was supposed to oversee new territories until their eventual statehood, and also provided a government for the possessions run as a territorial domain, kind of like Puerto Rico and America Samoa. They are also provided other stipulated services as clearly stated in the territorial United States Constitution. Instead, they have usurped upon our states and established their own state of states and literally substituted themselves for our rightful government in a betrayal of trust and duty. And I hate to say this, but in their defense, they will say this was necessary because we did not reestablish federal level states of states after the Civil War. But in fairness to us, nobody explained the situation. and no effort was ever made to inform the public and to allow for a reconstruction of the lawful government we are owed.
We're going to the border. Just spoke to some of my friends in Arizona. We have tremendous support. The Republicans are extremely united. They all want to see something happen, but they're extremely united. And I don't think I've ever seen unity like this in the Republican Party. The media, which I call the opposition party, a lot of the media.
Our economy was in a very bad decline. It was being orchestrated from the highest levels. The MSN was pushing their agenda the whole time for a recession during the elections. Trump and the Patriots knew the plan. There was a great reconstructing coming to the central banks of the world, and phase one had begun. The president of the World Bank stepped down and Trump would replace him. The Dems, MSN, confirmed that Trump could use a national emergency to fund the wall. Trump was holding a press conference that the MSN didn't really want to cover. Trump tweeted out that the stories about Syria were false, then Q dropped some more bread, confirmed that the government is and being run by the deep state. Ruth Bader Ginsburg might not be coming back to the Supreme Court, and Trump could appoint a new candidate. The fake news would not report on any of his successes. What they do is they create fake narratives, and when they don't come true, they create new ones. The clock's been ticking. Everything is changing. The full picture will be clear soon. Very soon, terrible news will spread. It'll seem impossible to believe, horrible, sickening, unbelievable, unimaginable things. It'll shake your world and may turn everything you've ever believed in upside down. People you know will be accused of unbelievable, monstrous things. This could be people in Hollywood, politicians, journalists, pop stars, your favorite charities, religious leaders, institutions, heads of states, police officers, so on and so forth. We want you to know that good people have been fighting a silent battle behind the scenes in order to save the world from the terrible horrors. It was a lonely war. It was a silent war. Chances are you did not even notice it, but you will soon. That's why we are here. That's why we are warning you, and you must hear us out. In the beginning of all this, we were just a bunch of anonymous people from around the globe. We didn't want money. We didn't want fame. We just couldn't sit back and watch the world burn and do nothing about it. That's why we are here, letting you know and have been trying to warn you. We've been supporting our President Donald J. Trump in his efforts to drain the swamp. I don't care if you like our president or not. I just want you to know that he will protect you regardless. Horrible things happen that will come to the light. Please don't be afraid. You will be safe. Bad actors will be brought to justice. Good people around the world will prosper again and live happy lives. Children and adults in slavery will be liberated. I'm Michael. This is a Patriot Hour. God bless, Godspeed to each and every one of you worldwide. Where we go one, we go all. And remember, be prepared for what you will find. Some truths are hard to swallow. Remember to inform your friends and family. Stay calm and inform yourself. Your president works every day and night to protect you from the unimaginable horrors that exist. This will all be over soon.
And we have information that you don't want to know about. What I'd like to see with Iran, I'd like to see them call me. You know, John Kerry speaks to them a lot. John Kerry tells them not to call. That's a violation of the Logan Act. And frankly, he should be prosecuted on that. But if it were the opposite way, they'd prosecute him under the Logan Act. But John Kerry violated the Logan Act. He's talking to Iran and has many meetings and many phone calls, and he's telling them what to do. That is a total violation of the Logan Act. Yeah.
What did Iran do to prompt you to send an aircraft carrier to the region?
Well, they were threatening, and we have information. That you don't want to know about. They were very threatening, and we just want to have. We have to have great security for this country and for a lot of other places.
Risk of military confrontation, sir?
I guess you could say that always, right? Isn't it? I mean, always. I don't want to say no. Hopefully that won't happen. We have one of the most powerful ships in the world that's loaded up, and we don't want to have to do anything. What I'd like to see with Iran, I'd like to see them call me. You know, John Kerry speaks to them a lot. John Kerry tells them not to call. That's a violation of the Logan Act. And frankly, he should be prosecuted on that. But my people don't want to do anything that's... Only the Democrats do that kind of stuff, you know? If it were the opposite way, they'd prosecute him under the Logan Act. But John Kerry violated the Logan Act. He's talking to Iran and has many meetings and many phone calls, and he's telling them what to do. That is a total violation of the Logan Act. Because what they should be doing is, their economy is a mess ever since I took away the Iran deal. They have inflation that's the highest number I've ever heard. They're having riots every weekend and during the week even. And what they should be doing is calling me up, sitting down, we can make a deal, a fair deal. We just don't want them to have nuclear weapons, not too much to ask. And we would help put them back into great shape. They're in bad shape right now. I look forward to the day where we can actually help Iran. We're not looking to hurt Iran. I want them to be strong and great and have a great economy. But they're listening to John Kerry, who's violated a very important element of what he's supposed to be doing. He violated the Logan Act. Plain and simple. He shouldn't be doing that. But they should call, and if they do, we're open to talk to them. We have no secrets, and they can be very, very strong financially. They have great potential, very much like North Korea. North Korea has tremendous potential economically, and I don't think he's going to blow that. I don't think so.
Can I circle back to